All right. So if you haven't already done it, open up ArchiCAD, and we're going to go through a few more things, including how to set up our drawing. So we never really covered units and things like that last week. I just wanted you to have a bit of fun first. All right. I'll just get my notes out just in case. First thing you'll notice, actually I might just change my colours here a little bit, and so that will be our first lesson. ArchiCAD with this new release have decided that pale yellow is the new white. But if you don't like it, we're going to change it. If I can remember where. Where are we? Somewhere in here. Grids and... Right. Must be under options, it should be. No. View. Where is it gone? Not looking very professional right now. Special snap, grids, editing, plane. Oh, here we go. So view, grid and editing plane options, grids and background. Okay. All right, so this pops up. First thing you'll see is we've got a couple of settings here for the grid. So the grid is that big grid you can see. At the moment it's set to be 2,000 millimetres by 2,000 millimetres in steps of 1, and there is no auxiliary grid. Now, it totally depends on what you're drawing. You might decide that you actually want to reconfigure this grid to suit what you're working on. So let's say we were doing things and we had panels that were 1200 by 1200, and then we want like a 50 mil gap between each of these panels, and we're going to be doing this over a whole courtyard. Okay, so like maybe 1200 by 1200 pavers with a gap between them. Now, if you have to draw this up, it's going to get a little bit monotonous, and you might want to align other things to that same grid, but they're not actually the pavers and that sort of carry on. So we can make up a custom grid. So we can go in here and go 1200 by 1200. Okay, you can see that the grid there changes. If I just hit OK, instantly we've got a 1200 by 1200 grid. I'm going to change the colours because you can't see that. View, was it grids and editing, grids and background. My background colour is this pale yellow colour. I'm going to change that to white. And I'm just going to make my grid lines just a little bit darker. You don't really need to do that, but otherwise you can't see it on my screen. All right. Just double click it. Okay. Cool, so you can make it any colour you like. You might want to make it pink so that it keeps you calm and at peace with yourself when everything else is going awry. An auxiliary grid means that what it's going to do is it's going to do 1200, and then it's going to do whatever I specify in here. So if I said 100 by 100, and go, steps 1, and go OK. I just have to zoom in here a little bit. You can see I've got 1200, then 100, then 1200, then 100, then 1200, then 100, etc., etc. So I could then like base my whole design on this 1200, 100, or 1300 sized grid. So you can imagine these could be little pavers, or maybe the trees line up with it, or the path or the lines to this grid. And you can do this however you like. So maybe you want to break that up a bit more. So you can go into view, grid and editing, grids and background. So maybe it's 600 by 600, but it does 2 of those, and then it does the 100. Okay, so I've got the way it goes. Cool. So you can make up your own grids, and you can snap to this grid. So you can make sure that trees land bang on certain points inside this grid. All cool? All right. Okay, what else would we need to change? Now, the other thing that you probably notice on here, if I go and fit to view, if your grid disappears like mine has, is it? Yep. All that means is that the grid just got so small, you can't see it anymore, so it doesn't bother drawing it. So if your grid disappears, that's what happened. Or you've gone and said 1200 by 1200 and you're working in meters, so you've just made a 1.2 kilometre by 1.2 kilometre grid, which means that you probably won't see it. All right. So if you zoom in, you'll start seeing that grid. It's like, oh, okay, there it is. I'm just going to go back and change it. I think I'll go back to a 2 metre grid just because, I don't know. Grids and background, so let's go, is it 2 metres? 2 metres, 1 by 1. That doesn't really matter because I'm just going to change it to 0 anyway. Oh, sorry, there's also a rotated grid. You'll actually see that if we move our grid or rotate it, rotate our drawing, so it's this one here, you'll actually see these move. And you can do that. I can't remember if I showed you this or not. Oh, where's it gone? They removed it. There should be a little X down here. Huh. Okay, that's interesting. I don't know what they've done with it, but there used to be a little X down there where you can move the origin of your drawing. Yeah, that one there. Oh, I know where it is. If we go, now there's 2 pallets that we should always have up actually, and they're quite vital. One is the coordinates, and the other one is the control box. That's these 2 here, coordinates and control box. Those 2 pallets have some vital stuff that we're going to be using a lot, and I would highly recommend that you bring them up. Coordinates and control. In fact, I'm so used to them being up that when they're not there, I kind of feel lost. All right. So now this gives you a lot of control over drawing. So I'm going to go through these pallets. Am I going to do it immediately? No, I'm not. I'm going to show you how to change the units first, then we'll come back to this. But what I will show you is that little X in the top left corner, this one here, can move our origin. So that's where our origin is currently. However, you can move your origin whenever you like. Now, I'm going to come back to this when I talk about the coordinates in a bit more detail. But it means that all of your numbers currently originate where that X is. Okay? And you can see that if you've got that coordinate box up, see this up here? See as I move up into this area, it's positive values. Go back there, you can see X's and negative values. Both are negative. Now the Y is a negative, both positive. See these numbers up here changing? Okay, so it's like the surveyor's point. Remember when we were in studio and we were talking about that? You have kind of like your known point, and everything kind of spreads from that known point. So you always have to start somewhere. So that's where our somewhere is. However, we can move this point whenever we like. So if you decided that actually I now want the origin to be somewhere else, I want it to be on the corner of the building, because I've got a whole bunch of measurements that all radiate out from that one point, you can actually move that point just by using this guy, and you just click somewhere. And so now all of my points, see all the values here are all originating from there. And we can also do things like move our grid and rotate our grid. So we can actually say, right, I want you to be there and at a 45-degree angle. Okay, so now our grid lines up with that little X and it's at a 45-degree angle. Does that make sense? So you can see we've got a huge amount of power just with the grid alone. And I'll go over how you snap to this grid. But it means that we can set up our own grids. They can be all sorts of different weird custom sizes. You can change them whenever you like. So if it's just one part of your site that has a kind of a grid type layout, and you want it to be a specific size, you can move the origin, rotate it to align to that part of the site. You can change how that grid appears. It doesn't have to be square, it could be oblong. and we can snap to that. Okay, and now let's show snapping. Oh, sorry, before I do that. See this little icon here? This goes between our normal grid. See, that's the original one we had. And our, and our rotated one. So you don't have to keep moving it. You can just actually flick between the two. Cool. And if you want to reset it again, you click that, move it somewhere else. You know, it's going at this funny angle. Okay. You'll also notice as well, even though I moved the origin, so remember this is where all my numbers start from now, the original origin always stays on the screen as a light grey colour. It's inactive, it's not really doing anything, it's just purely for your enjoyment. But if you want to move the origin back to there, you go click. Cool. So all of my numbers originate from there now. I know that doesn't really make a hell of a lot of sense right now why you would want to move the origin, but just know that it is possible. And once, especially in the second assignment, when we have to draw up an existing building, and we're going to be putting lots of measurements into this that we've taken, that's going to become quite vital where that origin is and how where your numbers originate from and how you've drawn it up and that sort of carry on. So, also, you'll find that lots of people work in lots of different ways. So some people just love using this grid system and being able to say, here's the origin, and I'm 45 degrees away from it and 300 metres, and et cetera, et cetera. Other people don't like working like that and prefer to draw a circle with an arc of 300 metres and another thing to position themselves. And I'll show you some good ways of drafting up stuff as well, more in the second assignment than this one. All right. Okay, so let's just go and put this back so it's all nice and square. If we want to snap to this grid, see this here? We've got these three little icons. Okay, so this is in this coordinate box. There's one with little dots and there's one with a big grid. I'm going to go to the big grid. Now, if I just zoom in here a little bit, see there's like a little black dot. See the little black dot down there? It's kind of chasing my cursor around. If I went to draw a wall, see it's snapping to my grid. Cool? So that little black dot that's racing around is where, if you click, is where it's going to appear. If I go to the one that was in the middle, it's called a snap grid, and I have to zoom right in before you'll see it. See there's the little black dot chasing my cursor around? Cool? You can kind of see how this is all like sort of all mechanical now. Now that snap grid is also defined where we just were in grids and background. See here it says snap grid / nudge and it says 50. That means that snap grid, that little grid that I just switched to, is snapping to 50 mil increments. Now the most powerful thing with CAD is its accuracy. Its biggest weakness is also its accuracy. Because if you just go and draw something up, this looks beautiful, and I've got pavers and amazing paths and all this sort of stuff, and then you start dimensioning it, all of a sudden you're going to start getting some pretty crazy dimensions. And, it's going to be like 1,372 millimeters long by 2,171 centimeters high, and it's just like, oh, this is terrible, and you'll get laughed off a working site. So you might, but maybe the idea of just being able to sketch something up is really important to you. You don't want to have to go, right, this is going to be 3.5 meters by 2 meters, So you could turn the snap grid on, and that means that when you go and draw something, it's going to be snapping to 50 mil increments. So when you go and dimension it up, it doesn't look ugly. It's nice 50 mil increments. It's actually buildable. Okay? Or at least it's snapping to a 50 mil grid. It doesn't always work out nicely, but cool. Some things are just impossible. But you could change that as well. If you wanted to snap to half-meter increments because you're working on a really big scale, you could change that to 500 mil, and then your snap grid would be 500 mil. Okay, it's still going to snap to the big grid as well, which is 2 meters, but you'd have this little snap grid in between. And you can flick between it. Now, this is a real good gotcha. Because if you've got, let's say, this wall here, right? And I'm trying to join another wall to it. And it doesn't matter what you do, it just doesn't quite snap to it. See, it hasn't, oh, it has kind of joined because it went over it. But I can never snap to it. See, remember, normally my cursor would change shape. I'd get, see, it's got like a little line inside my pencil or perpendicular or whatever. If I have it on the snap grid, I don't get that. And it's because what's happening is it's snapping to either side of my wall but not on my wall. I could get lucky, and it just so happens that, you know, it did fall on it, but chances are it just won't fall on it. If you find this is happening and you can't understand why you just can't snap two things together, chances are you've got a snap grid on and it's not hitting it. It doesn't tend to happen to things that are vertical or horizontal and vertical. But things that are on an angle, it nearly always happens, because what's the chances that your snap grid aligns perfectly with that line going through the same space? You know, pretty much zero. So if you're finding that things just aren't snapping together, that's probably why. I mean, the software is relatively smart. Is it? Yeah, so you can turn it off in here. You can, though. Let's say you wanted to start on the grid, and you'll see this a lot in ArchiCAD. So that's still snapping to my grid. See my little cursor's running around? Okay, but I can actually switch that off while I'm still drawing. So that end snapped to the grid, this end isn't. Yeah, and so then I can actually go, excellent. So that end will be a nice measurement, well, to my grid at least. And the other side won't. Yeah, so even things like zooming and things like that. So if I'm going and I want to zoom in on that, even though I'm in the middle of drawing, as long as I don't click in the drawing area, I can go down, grab the little plus and draw a little zoom in, and I'm still drawing, see? That probably doesn't line up with my vectors. See the line on that one and the line on that one? You'll actually see as well, you should be able to hover over things and you get guides. They don't always line up though. But I'm going to talk about creating guides in a second. Cool. Now it joins up nicely. All right. Hang on, let me sip my coffee. That'll sound good on the video. All right. Okay, so that's our grids. You can actually type these numbers in if you wanted to. So if I knew that I had a point that started at 1500, I can actually go up here, go to the wall tool, 1500 by 15, or 1550 then. Hit return, and boom, my cursor starts at that exact point according to my grid. Okay, I can also go up and type in the angle and the distance. See, so if I want at 45 degrees, oh sorry, that's the distance. So let's say for 2500 at 45 degrees, yeah, cool, hit return, and I've done a measurement. I can also, notice you got this little floating pallet that's telling you. You could try and like measure that out with your cursor, but I wouldn't recommend it. Or you can go D or R, exactly the same thing. D, let's say 3 meters by A, 25 degrees. Hit return. Ching. Awesome. Yeah, I can go. If you kind of just want to sort of eyeball it, you can go, oh yeah, it's about how long I want it. So that's about 4 meters. Why is it 70 degrees? Oh, it's 70 degrees to that. But you can see up here, the A up here is actually 90. And I can see that I'm also snapping. So I can go, right, I wanted 4 meters, and go D, 4,000. Yeah, A is good, just hit return. Yeah, so you can actually type in all of your values. Now I'm going to talk about this a lot in the next assignment, but be very careful when you do measurements like this. where it's one measurement on top of another, on top of another, on top of another, because every time you do that, you're increasing your error. So if you went along and you measured this entire, let's say we did this building, which we may or may not be doing for the second assignment, I haven't made up my mind yet. If you started at that corner and you just measured, 4 meters, 2 meters, 3 meters, by the time you got to the other side, you would be so far out it wouldn't be funny. You'd be out by meters because of all the little errors in between will all add up. Also, the building probably isn't actually all that square. So where you're assuming it's 90 degrees, it might not actually be 90 degrees. And so that's going to have a big impact on it. And the whole thing is just going to end up with dog's breakfast by the time you're finished. And I'm going to show you a way of making sure that doesn't happen. But yeah, always be very careful when you're drawing things like that. It's all right if it was like already plans that somebody had drawn, and they've got dimensions on it. Well, that's about as accurate as you can possibly get, is according to the plans. It's not a built structure. There's no real error being introduced there. However, you can do things like hold down the Shift key. This is also a handy one. See how it locks? See, so if I needed this to come back and line up with this, see how it's locked to that? And I can actually, so I hold down the Shift key at that angle, and I can come down and I can snap to that point. Cool. See, so I know that this point here lines up perfectly with this point here. I could bring this back down here if I wanted to, or I don't have to. Ching. What happened there? It's interesting. I must have, where I double-clicked, I actually missed it. This is when it's actually sometimes easier to move this away. Aha, that's what happened. When I double-clicked, I ended up with a funny little extra bit. And these two don't actually line up. That kind of sucks. Do I want to show you how to fix this now? Well, probably not. It's actually, oh, I see, I've gone and moved my entire line. Okay, so that's, yeah, see what I should have done is that this one here, which is not straight anymore, A90, and this one should line up. Now I could piss about for ages trying to get those to line up. If I just select these two, see up here we've got a whole bunch of tools, including one that cuts it. There's an axe. This one here adjusts the lines to fit to another line. This one here, ching, gets the two to join up. All right, I'm going to play a little bit up there actually, and I'm going to show you some keyboard shortcuts as well. So, that's all cool. What do those other ones do then, Zane? I'm going to just draw like a little arc. Alright, we'll just go with the default. So if you click on the circle tool, you need to learn how to use circles still, I suppose. In this case, we're going to do the center point of the arc. So we're going to click, and we're drawing an arc. So I can type in the radius if I wanted to. Let's say radius 6 meters. Oops. 6 meters, 1, 2, 3. Hit return. Okay, so there's my 6 meter radius. How far do I want that arc to go? If I click on the first point, it does a complete circle.
Where are you covering this radius on?
Just go R. Yep. Or D. It's actually transferable. Okay, I just want an arc that big. Okay, now I've got a whole bunch of walls. Okay, oops, I just want some straight walls here, and they're just going at different angles, all pointing towards that arc. All right. Now I want all of these walls to go up and touch that arc. Maybe it's a path or something like that, okay? So I can select all of these walls, and then, see this little guy up here? It looks like a whole bunch of walls in a line. And it says adjust if you hover over it. So if you click on that, and then you click on this line, ching. So it's, what I'm saying is adjust all of these walls to touch this line. And as you've just seen, it doesn't have to be a straight line. Okay, it could be a curving line. I think it works with the spline. I'm not 100% sure on that. Could be a curvy wall. Yep, so you go. Here's a whole bunch of walls. So I'm going to select them all, adjust, okay, which is Command minus. There you go. And then click on that. Okay, so I'm saying these walls, adjust them to fit to this line. All right. That's all good. Let's say I've moved my path now, right? Now I probably can adjust them. I think that would still work. Should do. Yep, it does. However, I'm going to show you a different way of doing it as well. Let's say this is all cool, but my design is kind of weird and crazy, and the ends of these walls are going to be red, and the ends of on the other side of that arc are going to be white. Okay, so what I actually have to do here, there's not the option to paint part of the wall red and part of the wall white. What I have to do is split the wall on that arc and then paint one side red and one side white, okay? So what I need to do is split this wall. So I'm going to select, I'll just zoom in on this a bit. So I'm going to select these walls, right? See that little X? That says split. Actually, I'm going to just make my life a little bit easier. I'm going to paint all the walls red first. Oh, no, they're already white. That's cool. So I'll just leave it. So I'm going to split the walls. So I select my walls, which they are, grab my X, click on this line, and now the eyeball just says, which side do you want to keep selected? Very convenient. I want to keep this side selected, and I'm going to change that side to be red. Awesome. So now if I go F3, why has it changed back? F3, you can see that my walls are now split across that arc, and part of them's red and part of them's white.
Did you put the arc again to then?
Yep, so select the walls first. Select the walls because walls are what you're cutting. Yep. I don't know what will happen if you've got the line. Yeah, so if you hold down the Shift key, you can unselect. There you go. Grab your X. Yep. And then click on that wall, or that line, sorry. Yep. And then which side do you want to keep selected? Is this purely for your own convenience? So if you wanted to keep that side selected, you click on that side. Cool. That one didn't split because the line didn't cross it. And then you can make your changes. So it might be a change in height or a change in this colour, change in colour. Yep. Oh, it doesn't need to. They're still split.
They're still split now, those three lines.
Yeah. But now you'd have to individually select them and change them. Now, you don't have to click on a line either. If it was an imaginary line, so I'm just going to change my keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard, use F1, F12. Thank you. Okay. I notice those are still split, okay? So you don't have to... That little eyeball is just for your own convenience because it's just assuming that you split these for a reason that part of them want to be different to the other half, so it's just making it very convenient and keeping half of them still selected. Yeah, if it's an imaginary line, let's say like from here to here, and there isn't actually a line drawn there, but that's all right. So if I select them and click on the X, I can just draw a line from here to here. Which side do I want to keep selected? This side. I'm going to change those ones to yellow. Cool. Okay. So that's actually a curve going through there. Note, though, it is actually a 90-degree cut through the wall. Okay, it hasn't actually cut on a curve, and there isn't any way of doing that. Oh, Yeah, well, you could achieve it if you really, really had to. You can come and see me and I'll show you a way. But technically you can't cut the walls on a curve like that, which you probably wouldn't want to anyway. You just get a nasty letter from the builder. All right. You could always fear them off if you had to. You know, Photoshop the little detail image to show that it's curved. I don't know. It's not a big deal. All right. Okay, you've got to remember these are now actually separate walls. That's 1 wall, 2 walls, 3 walls. Okay, I could change the height on that if I wanted to as well. Okay. So those changes don't just have to be materials. It could be anything you could possibly imagine. All right. I've just got to make sure I don't start teaching you things from another class and then screw that class up. I think I am kind of like wandering off a little bit. All right. This was kind of, I think that a lot of these 2D drawing things were meant to be in the last tutorial anyway, but that's all right. Okay. Let's do another common thing. I'm going to draw another circle. What was that? That was radius 6 meters, wasn't it? So I'm going to go from this side though. R6000. Cool. And I want, not from there. Doesn't really matter because I can select that circle, grab that point, and move it around anyway. Now, remember last time I adjusted those lines to fit? There is actually another way of doing it as well, and it's very convenient. If you hold down the Command key, see how your cursor turns to a pair of scissors? So it's just hitting the Command key. If I go over a line, see how the scissors turn black? I can just go click, 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 and I can quickly trim off the end of those lines. Okay? So again, if you've been a bit inaccurate with your drawing, and you had 2 walls, one was going in that direction, and you knew exactly that was going in that direction, another one was going in that direction, oopsies, you can just hold down the thing, trim, trim, boom, sorted. Hold down the Command key. Yep, you can go Command Z and it'll undo. Okay, so this line here, oopsies, these shouldn't have been like that. I'll just trim those off. There we go. Cool. If I want to extend the end of this one, extend to here. No, it doesn't like it. Probably because it's a curve. That's all right. Oh, because it doesn't actually touch it. That's all right. I just get them past each other. Trim, trim. There we go. Cool? Oh, you do? Hold down the... No, he's gone to fillet. Hold down the... See, so if you command click that, it's going to trim all the way back to here. So hold down the Command key. You don't have to select anything, you just click on it. On the line. Get it? Yeah, except for it's actually already chopped off anyway, because you've split it at some point. Yeah. So it's not really going to do much. That's not me. This is me, see?
I was going to ask you if you could make a couple little changes if I send you this file. I just tried to do it on my ArchiCAD. It said licenses expired. It won't let me in.
All right.
I have a file, but all I want is those yellow numbers changed to that.
Okay. Just email it to me or something.
Is that cool?
Yeah. All right. So we've trimmed, we've chopped, we've adjusted. We've also got that fillet tool as well in here. So you can actually, remember the other day I grabbed the corner of a slab, I think it was, or a mesh, and I rounded off the edge, rounded off the corner. You can actually, I don't know if this will work with 2 curves, but let's give it a crack. You go like that, 5,000 radius. No, it's a bit extreme. Let's say 1,000. Alright, except we didn't do it to this end. Okay. So you can select two objects or two walls, for example, select them, and then you can round them off.
How did you get that?
Fillet them off. The trim. Hold down the command key.
Oh no, the colour one. You like
Oh, yeah, so all I did then is brought up the settings and changed it to
okay.
what colour.
I was looking for a button.
What is going on here? Okay. I'll have a, just, yeah, when I finish, don't log out. I just want to check to see if all the programs are actually there.
Where's this rounding code?
It's that guy there. So that will fill it or...
You need to be on a specific...
No, you just have to select two things.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so that fillet one, you'll actually see it's in the what's called the pet palette. Okay, so if you select two things, quite often, see it's got it in the pet palette. Remember the pet pallet's this little palette that pops up. Usually when you click on either a node or an edge, you'll see this pet palette pop up. And usually that will move a point or mirror or rotate it. We haven't really looked at it in very much depth yet. But that's the one that you use for usually adjusting corners and edges anyway, or moving the entire object. So you can actually see the fillet does appear there as well. Or, if you just selected them, you can go up there and do exactly the same thing. Okay? There's many ways to do exactly the same thing. So if I said 1,000, it's going to fillet off that corner with a radius 1,000. Notice that this one's looking a bit kooky, and that's because that reference line thing that I talked about last week. Okay, so I've drawn this wall, and the reference line is in fact on this side, and on this one it's on this side. So they're actually on opposite sides. They don't actually line up. Okay, you've got to remember that the math behind this all is all vectors. So this is just a straight line with a wall being drawn on it. So what it's actually trying to do is it's trying to draw an arc from here to here. And that means that the wall's actually going from one side to the other side. So that's why it's looking a bit kooky. Do you want to know how to fix this? Okay. What we need to do, I'm going to show something. So I'm just going to go back to how it was, right? Does it have it on here? No, it doesn't. If you go up to View, on-screen View Options, see it says there, the second thing, it says Wall and Beam Reference Lines. Now this is just purely for while you're drawing. But if you click on this, you'll actually see these reference lines, and you can see the way that you drew them. Okay, so you can see that straight line with the arrows. That means that I clicked here and then clicked here. Okay, so you can actually see how you drew it, which is quite handy. So here you can see that these two just don't make any sense. So I've gone and drawn from here to here. If you remember, I actually went, and then I trimmed the ends off. But the reference lines have ended up run the wrong way. This would come back to haunt me when I went and selected, let's say I was the outside of the building, I wanted brick on the outside. Well, what it's going to do is it's going to put brick on this side and brick on this side. And that would kind of suck. Okay, so what I need it to do is I need that reference line to be on the opposite side of the wall. I need to flip the reference line. So I'm going to select this one here. And somewhere in here is under Design, Wall Extras, Reference Line. And it's actually got a little icon that looks like the reference line being switched. And it does actually have the option. So I can say no change. I can put it on the left, put it on the right, or just invert it. So yes, invert. Okay. Ching! Okay, so all it's done, the wall's actually stayed where it was. It's just gone and flipped the reference line to the other side. So now if I put a texture on the outside, it would appear on the outside of both walls. And if I go and fillet this, it'll be a nice perfect circle because you can see how it's going around. It doesn't really matter that the direction of the line's changed. But the reference line is always on the outside. Okay, before it wouldn't have made much sense, and it would have come back to haunt me as well when I go and try and apply textures to one side or the other. Would have been a pain in the bottom. Okay? Generally, you won't have this problem because you usually draw things, you know, and you're thinking about it. So when you go and draw the outside of the building, you're always having the walls appear on the inside. So it's never really an issue. It's usually just when you've kind of like sketched something up, you know, and joined a whole bunch of stuff together and trimmed them and that sort of carry on, and all of a sudden it's like, hang on. Okay, so you can see when I drew all these, I drew them in the same manner. I was always going click, 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 you know. So they've all ended up pretty much identical. So it's not a big issue. But it's good to understand the logic that's happening behind it all. All right. I think that's pretty much all those. Oh, that thing there is exactly the same thing as holding down the command key. Yeah, so when we do this, okay, if we wanted to select this line, we can go trim to this. Oh, sorry, trim that to that. Exactly the same thing as just going command click. Okay, if those are around the wrong way as they are now, you can go design, modify, wall extras, sorry, reference line. Yeah, invert it. Okay. Excellent. Cool. Depends totally on what you're doing. Usually you'll find that your reference lines aren't a big issue. But if they are being a pain in the bum, that's why. And that fillet is a classic example because of the way that it's filleting. In fact, if I do it again, you'll see the reference line and how it changes. So let's say I put a 500mm. Oh, there, it completely screwed up. Yeah, you can see that the wall's coming around, it's on the wrong side, and then it flips. Yeah, you can't, it just can't do the math. There's no way you can get that to work any other way. Okay, you flip that wall. And then wall extras, reference line, invert. Okay. Cool. I can now select those two. Do my fillet 500. Boom. Works perfectly. Okay, so if you see it break apart like that, warning. Get in there, have a little look, and you should be able to fix it. All right. Okay, is there any questions about that? You can see it's pretty powerful. Yeah, you can start coming up with some pretty crazy ideas and, you know, producing sight lines and then trimming things to those sight lines and, you know, making up patterns, putting out a big pad. You can split it up. If it was we can split like a concrete pad. So let's say we've got a big concrete pad in here, big slab. Actually, I probably wouldn't do it like that, but let's say we've got a big slab in here. Cool. Oh, I almost want a nice big square one. Okay, I can select that, hit the X and split it at this angle. Keep one side selected, you know, change it to a different colour. All right. Okay. Maybe this is a step, so I could lift up the top surface 100mm. Cool. Okay, so I'm just doing exactly what I just did before. All I did is instead of splitting a wall, I splitted a slab. Oh, I just selected the slab and changed its top height to 100. Sorry. If I select my slab, see? Yeah. Remember, there's always two ways of doing this. Slabs and walls are kind of the same. In a slab, though, we always define a slab's top height as being, you know, or the height of the slab as being the top surface of it. So, you know, that's the height of our slab is always the top surface. Whereas a wall, we define it as being its base. Okay, so we say when a wall, the base of it is 100 and it is 5 metres high. Slabs, we say the top surface is at 0 and it's 200 deep. So, yeah, two different ways of thinking of the same thing. However, that T and B are the same, the top height and the base height. Okay. However, if you jump into here, you'll see it's the top height, that's that 100, and its thickness is 200. And the wall, it would be the base height, which would be 0, and the top, the height of it's 5 meters, or whatever it is. Make sense? It's generally how people think. So you select your slab, go to the X, and then just draw a line through it. So click. Remember, only single clicks. Click, click, not click and hold.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I'm dragging.
Yeah. So you're not gaining or losing anything.
Okay, so that's
And then, so then which side do you want to keep selected?
right.
Yeah.
Then you can go to
Yeah, so you can change the top height, or you can change the colour, or do whatever you like. Delete it. All right.
Sorry, how did you get that preview out, that 3D modeling?
Oh, sorry, press F3. It should, if you just go F3, it should go. No, it's not. System preferences. You shouldn't have to do this.
Oh, okay.
So otherwise, you've got to hold the function key every time.
Which one? Oh.
Yeah, so you go function F3, which is just a pain in the bottom. Now you just go F3, F2, F3. Cool. Sorry, and one of the other thing, the lecture from last week, it will show how to navigate around in there.
Oh.
And in the tutorial, I'll show even more detail of navigating in there.
I'll catch up on that.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, pretty cool, eh? So you could create a whole bunch of lines and grab that slab and split it all up into lots of pieces and lift it up and change its colours and
you can make it.
yeah. And those lines could line up with something and maybe all radiating out from the same point. Yeah, you could do all sorts of stuff. Crazy. All right. Yeah, I'm not sure if you can split. Actually, I just want to try a little experiment out. There's a thing called a spline, which we love for doing contours, but not everything works with it. So I'm going to see if I can split the slab based on this spline. Didn't work. Yeah, not surprised. No. So sometimes you'll find that the spline doesn't always work. Now there is definitely workarounds with this. But yeah, just be warned that the spline doesn't always work in the same way, mostly because it's quite a complex mathematical model, and the edge of the slab can't be a spline. Okay, it just doesn't, maybe in ArchiCAD 23 or something, but currently you can't have the edge of the slab being a spline shape. Yeah, and I mean, when I say spline, okay, so this is still a vector shape, but notice here I've only got so many points along here, okay, and however I move it, it's like a flexi curve, So a flexi curve, you know what I'm saying when I say flexi curve? Yeah, so you get like the lead-based ruler, and you can bend it. So normally you'd have several points, and you bend it to fit. Okay, in a way that's a spline. So what we're saying is that there's these points and there's these controls across it. This one here is what's typically called a natural curve, and that it's just doing a natural curve to try and get through all of these points. Very similar to a flexi curve. However, see this one here, this one has what's called Bezier handles on it. So what that's saying is that this kind of controls what's happening at the tangent. Okay, so when I say tangent, that line is parallel to the curve at that exact point. These little things that I'm pulling out from there are dictating how that curve arrives at that point and leaves that point. So, in theory, I should be able to create a circle, a perfect circle with 2 points. Now, let's see if I can get this right. Because it's leaving like that. And then it goes through there like that. And then it arrives. Oops. Hang on. I'm just going to adjust these so that they're the same. Cool. Okay, so it's a circle defined with 2 points. Okay, you should be able to write your name with them. And in fact, that's a really good way of trying to learn how to control a spline. And you'll see splines in lots and lots of programs, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, anything that has lines will typically have splines in there as well. Or B-splines are sometimes called, because they've got Bezier handles. That's what these things are. Okay. So if you want something to come up and hit at 90 degrees, it needs to be a curve, that this line here should be hitting it at that exact angle. So if I wanted to have a curve that came up, you know, maybe it goes off here like this, and then you go and join up to there. So that means I need it to be parallel to this. It's come like that. So now the line's coming in and it's going to join it.
Where do you get Spline from?
Oh, sorry, it's under more. Sorry, I've gone a little bit off topic. But, yeah, and so that one there's our natural curve. That one there's our Bezier curve. I'm not completely off topic. Oh, note as well. See, I'm doing a single click and it's doing 90 degree, you know, like sharp corners. You click and drag. Okay. And at any point, you can actually select one of these and convert it back into like a natural curve. Okay. It will change its shape though. So, but yeah, you're going to see these curves all over the place. And we're going to draw contours eventually with these, because as you can see, they're very good for drawing contours. Okay. So, my whole point of talking about that, though, was that you will find that certain functions, like trimming to a spline, didn't work. Okay, it didn't like having to deal with that kind of math. Which kind of segues into the magic wand. What is a magic wand? Okay. Quite simply, a magic wand will follow a shape for us. It's kind of like the magic wand in Photoshop, but much cooler. Okay, because we're dealing with vectors, it works a little bit different. We can get a shape to either follow a line or fill in in a hole, like the Photoshop one does. You know, you go and grab it and you can select on blue, and it selects all the blue. Basically the same sort of thing, but it's a little bit more intelligent. So if I grab a slab, so let's say this shape up here, right, which looks something like that. Okay, and I want to put a slab inside there. Now I could go around the outside and draw it, or I hold down my space bar, and, okay, I'm going to do it the wrong way first. I'm going to click in here. Alright, so where's my slab? Hang on. Did that draw a slab? Oh, sorry, I had something selected. Make sure you got nothing selected. Slab. Alright. Doesn't look like anything's happened. However, there's a slab in there. Now, I say the wrong way, only from a design point of view, because if you notice, my slab should go underneath my wall. Okay, you can't have a slab and then a gap and then the wall hanging off the edge of the slab. Just laws of physics and stuff will mean that So really what I want is my slab to go to the outside. Two ways I could do this. I could have drawn it correctly in the first place, which is totally doable. Or I could actually just make my whole slab a bit bigger, which in this case will work very nicely. From my pet palette, see this one? I can actually make my whole slab bigger, so I could even have like a footpath on the outside. Or I can just zoom in here and get it to snap to the outside so that it lines up. If I was to draw it correct to begin with, so I've got nothing selected, right? Go to my slab tool, and this time hold down the space bar, and I'm going to click on my vector that runs around the outside here. And so now, if I select that slab, you can see it's run around the outside edge and followed that line all the way around. That does mean that the line has to run all the way around. Okay, if there's a big gap, it's not going to work. But that way, my slab goes underneath my wall. So you still have to think, unfortunately. But, and I can offset this still if I wanted to as well, which is quite convenient. Because if I want to do a concrete path, not a problem. Because I can just go, right, let's just offset this by 1500. Boom. So that's a 1.5 millimeter, 1.5 meter path. Awesome. Now, the slab tool, if I've got the slab selected, if I go and draw a shape in here now, so I go back to the slab tool and start drawing a shape in here, it'll create a hole. Or if I hold down the space bar and click my edge of my building again, I go and chop out the same shape. So now I've gone and created a path on the outside of my wall. It doesn't actually go underneath my wall. That's cool. I don't really care about the architecture. I just want this concrete path to butt up against the edge of the building, and I've done that now. Okay, and so that's just totally done using the magic wand. And a slab, obviously. Cool. I can split it and cut it and fill it off the corners. Oh, if you go and say 500 and I said apply to all corners, just warning it. Oh no, did it only to the outside. Okay, so it's run around the outside. Just be careful because sometimes that's not cool and it goes and you've got this massive slab and it goes and rounds off every single corner and you might not have wanted that. So just be careful if you do that, apply to all. It's if you click on a node or an edge. Yeah, so select your wall. Go to your arrow tool first. Yeah. Select a wall. So if you click on the edge or a node, yeah. That's your pet palette. Yeah. You see the pet palette changes all the time. I haven't really talked about that a huge amount, but yeah, you can do things like arc edges. See, something like, if I was doing something like that, I shouldn't have filleted all the corners first. So get your basic shape off before you start, because otherwise you've got to get rid of the filleted corner and then do a refillet it. Otherwise I'm going to end up with a funny, kooky angle in here, which is annoying. So it's much easier to get your general shape off before you start making nice round corners on everything. Cool. Otherwise you can start drawing parallel lines and getting them to intersect, and yeah, it's horrible trying to get rid of them all. Okay. If you haven't noticed already, most of this is just about 2D drawing. So what else can we do? So, magic wand. Now, if you recall before, I said something about how splines aren't really all that cool, okay? Because a lot of things don't work with it. Make sure I've got nothing selected. But let's say, okay, I really want a nice spline kind of, I'm going to have a path that goes out in this direction, right? Oh, hang on. Remember to click and hold if you want it to curve. Okay, and I want it to curve up like this. Actually, I might go straight. Yeah. Click and hold. I highly recommend that you practice playing with Bezier curves. Okay, so here we go. This is my new path, right? Note that after you've finished drawing it, you can edit it and move it and change these. Okay, I want this being 90 degrees so that it leaves nicely down here. So you go more, oh, you mean if they're not showing up? Select the curve and click on that one there. Otherwise it's a natural curve. And natural curves are good too. Bezier curves just have a lot more control over the shape. Natural curves is really just about the points it's going through, which might be perfect. That might be exactly what you want. You want a nice path that goes and touches the edge of a building and then over to the edge of a tree and then runs across the side of a stream or something like that. You know what I mean? So natural curves are great too. The cool thing is you can switch between. Okay, but just remember, if you go from a Bezier to a natural curve, you'll lose all the adjustments you made. It'll just go back to a natural. But you can create a natural curve, then flick it over to a Bezier and adjust it.
How do you
Yeah, so just grab it and move it. Oh, sorry, you see that little guy there?
Oh, what's that?
That thing there, just click on it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, so click on the edge, on that little point there, yeah? If it's not doing what you want, so you want that one there, so just go and click on it. Don't worry about the thing moving. Yep. And now you're adjusting the curve. Yeah, with that pet palette, remember, if it's doing something that you don't want it to do, don't stress, okay? It's like, oh shit, I didn't want to adjust that. I wanted to move the entire curve. Don't stress, because all you do, as soon as you go and click on this, it'll be moving, okay? And it hasn't locked in that changed the curve that it was happening. Okay, so again, if I went to, okay, yeah, I actually wanted to mirror this, or I wanted to adjust that edge. You just click on it. Okay, the next time I go, oh, I really want to adjust this, and oh shit, it's moving the entire curve. Not a big deal. Flick on that, now I'm adjusting the curve. Okay, it will always default to the last function that you're doing. So if you're filleting off the corners of a slab, the next time you hit the corner, it's going to go straight to the fillet tool. If you didn't want that, just hit cancel, and it'll go back to the move, I think, by default. Okay, and you can choose something else. All right. So here's my funky path. Well, it's not that funky, really, is it? Because it currently is, well, it's a straight line, and paths generally aren't just straight lines. In fact, paths are quite complicated because the outside edge is going to have totally different radiuses to the inside edge. You know, if you go around a corner, the inside edge might be radius 1500, the outside edge is radius 3000. Now, splines don't have radiuses because they're not arcs or circles. So somehow we have to convert this spline into arcs and circles that somebody could actually draw as well. Is always a good option. So how do we do this? Well, quite simple actually. We can either use a polyline or even arcs and circles. I tend to like to use a polyline. A polyline is simply lots of lines all joined together. So it's straight lines and curves all joined together into one big, nice polyline. And I'm going to go spacebar, which is my magic wand, and magic wand my spline. All right. So now, if I actually, where's my spline? All right. Spline. Spline. There it is. There's my spline. I would normally put that onto a different layer, because if I ever want to recreate, you know, or adjust that spline, if I've magic wanded something to it, including a wall, I might want to actually go back to the original spline, adjust the spline, and then recreate the wall from it, rather than having some horribly shaped wall that I can't adjust. For now, though, I'm just going to be lazy and just move it over here. And you can see that underneath, there's a polyline. And all of these are radiuses. In fact, I don't expect you to do this. But see, I can dimension off each radius. Oops. Sorry, hang on. So all I did, I'll do it with the wall because it's a little bit more obvious. If I magic wand, ching, it's magic wanding the spline. Now, if you remember before, I said you couldn't do a lot of operations with a spline. However, you magic wand a line or a wall or whatever to that spline, you can now adjust to that wall. Okay, so the splines are very handy. You can create objects like walls. So you can't create a spline wall. Okay, there's no tool for creating a wall with splines. However, I can draw a spline and then use the magic wand to follow that spline with the wall tool. Does that make sense? Okay. I want to make a nice, big, curvy, wobbly wall. There's no way of doing it. Okay, there's just straight ones or circular ones, but there's no wobbly wall tool. Okay, not a big deal. I just draw it with a spline as I have here, and I can grab my wall and go magic wand, Boom. Okay, and it's drawn, it's followed that spline with the wall tool. Spacebar. Just hold the spacebar. So you go to the wall, hold down the spacebar, click on the wall, on the line I mean. Boom.
And then that's my little wall.
That's exactly it.
What's that? So hold it down.
Yeah, so just get rid of that. Cool, go to the wall tool.
Okay, well, how do you duplicate that spline first off?
I didn't.
You didn't.
No, I just moved it off. Oh, because the first magic wanted a poly line to it just to show how to make a line.
I didn't mean to follow that, but where was the
That's all right. Don't worry about it. Grab the wall. Hold down the space bar. Click. Ta-da.
Okay, and what about the...
So yeah, before I did it with the poly line instead, which is in the document it's hidden. So I did it with the poly line, exactly the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but see, I wanted to use the poly line for something. All right. Okay, yeah, don't worry about the polyline, probably a bad example. The wall was a better example. You can actually see what I was doing. Okay. So have we all got that? I'm just going to go undo, 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 so I end up back, hopefully. Yeah. Okay, so I've gone undo, 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 until I've gone all the way back to this line, this spline, sorry. So, that's all cool. Remember, originally what I was saying is that I wanted to create a path that comes off here. Okay, so I've drawn this curve, which is one side of my path, and now I have to draw a path in there. But a path is a little bit more complicated than this big wobbly spline that I've got. So I need something to help me. And what I need is, I could actually just use the spline. What I need is another line offset from that line. Yeah, but see the slab, I've got to define the inside edge of this, right? Because that would have to be along here. And if I need to define that side as well, which doesn't exist at the moment. Okay, so what I need to do is offset this edge. Now, so this is where we want to use the polyline, right? Now, actually, no. First, I'm going to show this in a very, very simple manner. Okay, so I'm going to draw just a simple circle here. Okay, if I want to draw another one of these, now, yes, I could find the center, okay, and draw another one. Okay, that was convenient, but let's say I don't know where that is, or it's more complicated than that, but it's not. I want to have an offset tool, and that is where this control palette here comes into play. There's all sorts of cool stuff in here. If you can't see it, remember Window Palettes Control Box, it's called. You can recognize it. See, it's got the little OK on there, on the icon. Okay, so if you forget what it's called, you want to be looking for that one that's got the OK button on it. That OK button is actually quite handy as well. Because remember, like, if we want to finish a wall, you have to double click it to finish it. Sometimes it's easier just to go and hit OK and it will finish it as well. Or you can hit cancel and it will cancel whatever you're doing. So if you start doing something, it's like, oh shit. You could hit escape, that would be the easiest way, or you could go up there and hit cancel as well. Alright, so we've got this control box on the screen. Now it's got a few things I'm just going to skip past. See this guy here though, if you click and hold on it, now it's got a whole bunch of little ways of controlling how we draw in 2 dimensions. So the first one that's actually shown there by default is perpendicular. So if I want to draw a wall that is perpendicular to here, again, there's hundreds of ways of doing this, I can click on that tool, click on this line, and now when I draw my wall, it'd help if it's not curved, sorry, straight wall, perpendicular to this line, and now if I draw, that wall is 90 degrees to the line that I clicked on. Okay, I'm going to do it again, I'll do it slower. This is really handy because Yes, I could actually just go and hover over this wall, this line, sorry, and draw, and some magic will eventually happen that will give me a guide somehow. No. Well, that's great anyway. Just kind of illustrates my point. Sometimes you should be able to get a guide popping up. Oh, there it goes. You click on that little orange dot. However, that's assuming that I actually wanted that wall to touch the thing, okay, which is a big assumption. What happens if I want to draw a wall over here that is 90 degrees to this wall over here? Okay, then it's like, oh, okay, I could draw a line going all the way over there or something. Or I can just go click on that. Okay, so I'm on the wall tool. I want to be perpendicular to this. Sweet. Just click on that wall. That line there is 90 degrees to this green line here. Okay? And that could be an imaginary line too. That's clicking on a line. But what happens if I wanted, let's say, something that was 90 degrees to, let's say, this gap in here. Like maybe I wanted to split this in half. Okay, but I want it 90 degrees to this imaginary line through here. Not a problem. Okay, perpendicular to this. Okay, so this is now 90 degrees to this imaginary line through here. So if I actually drew a line through there, you would see that that would be 90 degrees in there. Okay? So you either click on a line or define one. And that works with anything. So if it was a beam, I know we haven't talked about beams, but if I want it to be 90 degrees to this, I can click on it, or I can draw any line, and that's 90 degrees to that imaginary line I just drew. Very handy. Cool. You'll never need to know an angle ever again. Of course, I could have added the angle from 1 to 1 and then divided it by 2 and then put A and then that number. But this is a lot simpler and quicker. Quicker? There's a new word. Quicker. Okay. Does that make sense? Now, these things are available whenever you like as well. So if you're in the middle of drawing a big poly wall, oh, I need this to come back and hit this at 90 degrees, but don't actually want to join the wall. 90 degrees to him. Boom. Cool. Oh. Okay, how about parallel? Exactly the same sort of thing. I'm in the middle of drawing. I need this to be parallel to this. Okay, yes, I could hover over it and eventually I'll get a little parallel line. Or I could pop up here, say parallel, which is the next option, to this. And now I know that that there is running parallel to that there. Awesome. Okay. And if I want to finish there, I can just hit OK, or I could click the last point. I don't know if you noticed earlier, it's a beam. It's dotted lines because it's above our head, if you like. I know it's a little bit off topic, but all drawings, you've got an imaginary cut line through your site where it's cutting through it vertically. And so beams are generally drawn with a dotted line that fits above head height sort of thing. So that's why you'll see that the beams are a dotted line. They will change. If you go and put them down lower, there is somewhere hidden in there, which one day you will see, a value of where that line gets drawn. Same thing like sloping walls. You know, it has to cut through it at some point. So I think it's, by default, I think it's 1.2 meters or something like that. So if you had an angled wall, you'll see where it cuts through, and they'll have dotted lines above that point and a solid line below that point. Yeah, so just keep that in mind. All right. Sorry, that was a little bit off topic. Now, what else can we do in there? Okay, here's a good one. See this guy here? What that one does, so now I'm going to draw a beam that is half the angle of this and this, right? So I can go click on that one, and now if I draw a beam, that is half the angle of this and this. This is very important when you're drawing dealing with slopes. If they're at the same angle, they're always, the joining point of those two sloping surfaces will always be half the angle. Okay, so a classic example of this 90 degrees, it's 45 degrees that those two slopes will meet. Okay, if it's some crazy angles, it gets really complicated. And when we have, one day we'll get there, and I'll show you how we can deal with that, but in a very simple manner. But we're not doing it today. Okay, so, and you can do that wherever you like. So if I want another one going through here, and it needs to be half the angle, not a problem. Click that angle, click that angle, boom, I'm running through the centre. Okay. All make sense? All of these tools work the same way. And they're always available to you. Okay, so even if you're in the middle of drawing the edges of a slab and you want it to be half an angle, bam, even in the middle of drawing something, you can go up there and use these tools. Oh, it's easy. You just don't. It's just wherever you draw it. So if I wanted it half of these two, so I go click, click, right? If I want it to be out here, oh, I see what you're saying. So, well, I suppose you could just move it. Yeah, because that's assuming that they're passing through the same point. Yeah. All right. Eventually, I'm just going to delete a bunch of stuff in here. Okay, eventually I get to this guy here, which is an offset edge. So if I wanted to draw a beam that was the same shape as this blue line, but out half a metre, boom, which looks something like that. Okay, so it's offsetting that line. So, is anybody now going, ah-ha-ha? Because you should be. I'm going to do this kind of the easy way first, and I'll do it the right way. So that means if I want to draw the other edge from this curve, I could go to my polyline, hit this, magic wand. Actually, do I have to do the magic wand? No, I don't. Yes, I do. Magic wand that, and see, and I can offset it. Now, actually, we've hit a limit. I can offset this way far as I like. Oh, no, I can't. I can only go so far as well. And I can only go so far in that direction. What I'm going to do is I'll stop right there, right? There is a very good reason for this. And it's because what's happening to achieve this is it's actually just taking that radius. Remember when I drew the circle and it was over here and I said that I could offset this edge? Okay, so if I go and do the same thing, so I get my offset edge, hold down my space bar and say follow this line. Okay, see how the edge is just getting larger. So I think I wanted it 1500, so I did a radius 3000. I'm going to do 1500. Cool. So that's 1500 offset from that edge. So now it's 1.5 metres. Okay, it should be 4.5 actually radius, because I think the other one was 3 metre radius. I'm better with numbers than I am with names, by the way. Yes, I'm saying off. Yeah, so I want to draw an offset line, and I'm magic wanding the other one. No. So go to the line, the polyline. Yeah. And you're going to use this tool here, which is that offset. That one, yeah. And you're saying follow that line, so you hold the magic wand down. Say, yeah, just click, and then click on that curve. You can let go of the space bar now. You see? So what you're saying is, I want to draw this shape, but offset. Okay, and then you can type in D1500 if you want to, and it will... Oh, no, hang on. You've actually turned yours off somehow. It's actually that thing there. I think there's a... You can go out and click any of those things, even though you're in the middle of drawing. To the right of that? Yeah. Yeah, see, now it's popped up again. So you go D, see, that pops up there. It was actually popping up before, but it was popping up in there. Yeah, and just hit return. And that is 1.5 meters wide.
Which is the width of the path.
Exactly. And so you can do exactly what you just did then, but do it to the spline.
Okay, so
Okay, so, sorry, what I was just trying to demonstrate there, what it's doing is it's actually just drawing a curve, okay, so it's, and then it's reducing or increasing the radiuses, okay? However, what happens when we reduce a radius eventually is we will hit 0, and you can actually see if we zoom in here, we've ended up with some crazy little shape happening in here. And that's because as I was reducing this radius here, it eventually hit 0. In fact, it looks like it's gone kind of a bit past it and made an ugly shape. Shouldn't do that. Okay? So I'm going to force it to do this. Okay? So if I go, how should I do this? Let's use the old spline tool, right? I'm going to just use a natural curve. Okay, it's a nice big curve, right? And I'll curve it out a bit. Grab my polyline, offset. In fact, I'm going to show you the next tool, which is exactly the same thing. It's multiple offsets, though. Okay, which is pretty cool. So magic wand, oopsies, sorry, polyline, that guy. Make sure it's highlighted. So I can't go any further because this radius in here hit 0. Also, this is strange, isn't it? Why is it doing that? Yeah, very peculiar. Because yeah, it's just offsetting edges. So now there is a workaround to this. I needed this to be 1500, I couldn't do it. See, and it's done the same thing here. See, so all it's done is it's reducing this radius down and down and down and down until eventually it can't go any smaller. So, how do I deal with it? I'm just going to go undo, undo, undo. Oops, sorry. Redo. What I'm going to do, so I still need this to be 1500. I've got a little problem because that's happening. So let's clean this up a bit. If I drag him to his neighbour, he'll disappear. Problem solved. And now I can keep going, except for I don't really know how far that's going to be. So I'm going to draw a line perpendicular to this one. Is it going to let me go perpendicular? No. Perpendicular to this one. That's not perpendicular. Perpendicular to this. Why does it think that that is perpendicular? So this is the problem with splines. The math just doesn't always work. It sucks. So this is why I originally said, let's get a polyline and follow this spline. Okay? Now, where's my spline gone? Oh, another handy tip. If you've got objects on top of each other like I have here, if you hit the tab key, it flicks between what's underneath your mouse. See, so I've got polyline, which is selected, and spline, which isn't selected. So if I click, I now have my spline. I'm just going to move it over here. All right. This is actually what the my other curve followed anyway. And you'll actually see it's this radius here that's obviously got too small. So now I should be able to go and draw a line that's perpendicular to this one. Let's say from there. That little orange dot as well, if you click on that, it should. There you go, and there's 90 degrees. So if I go D 1500, right? That's how wide my path should be. So, how can I fix this up? I can now, you'll probably want to refer to this. This doesn't always happen, of course, but it does. So I'm going to go like that, cool, perpendicular to this. Suppose click up to there. Awesome. I can now delete this line. I don't need it anymore. This one's got a bit of a nasty corner on it, so I'm going to fillet that off. Let's say with a 200 mil. Okay, so I've still got a nice little curve in there. Okay, this edge here and this edge look pretty good. And the path looks pretty good too. And it should be pretty much 1500 all the way around. Yeah, 1502. Yeah. Looking pretty good. I'll get rid of this line now, don't need it. I now have to sort out how my path finishes. In this case, it's just going to be, let's say, 90 degrees. Just want it chopped off. So if I go perpendicular to this, oops. Again, it's being a pain in the bum. It's because it's a curve, and you can't really be 90 degrees entirely to a curve. Yeah. Yeah. So if you can click that little orange dot, it stays around for long enough. There we go. Should be able to get 90 degrees to that. There we go. Oh, it actually lines up perfectly. Trim that off. Okay, these have to meet. Cool. So I'm all ready to go, which means, I know I'm not, see there's a little gap, not cool. Let's just bring him out to there. Cool, that one all meets. Excellent. So now I can grab my slab and say, follow this line. Damn, didn't work. Why is that? There must be a little gap there or something. No. Not sure why that happened. Just make sure those connect. Ah. Okay, it doesn't like connecting those two. That's all right. Let's see if we can get the slab to fill it like that. Yep, that worked. Okay, so it's just using the magic wand inside the shape so it looked for the outside shape. In theory, it should have worked before. As long as all your edges all meet up, it should work fine. Okay, so now I've made a nice big curvy path that's 1500 mil wide all the way across. All the radiuses are all correct. It's a little bit ugly, admittedly. But that's a design issue, not a technical issue. Cool. Now, I could also actually, let's just undo that, right? So now I haven't got the slab. What I want to do this time is I'm actually going to add to my original path. So instead of having two paths joined together, I'm going to just add that other shape to this shape. If I click on the edge, our little pet palette pops up, and there's a plus. I want to add, space click, this shape. Ching! So now I've just got nice, one great big concrete slab that has that shape. The reason I'd want to do that is means that I can now fill it off these corners, because it's all one shape, so easy to do. I could have done it before, but I'd end up with other little shapes in there and be a pain in the bum. The other cool thing is if I change my concrete texture to one bit, it changes to the whole thing, because it's all one big object. I can, calculate the volume of this thing eventually. I can fill it off my corners with a nice 2 meter radius in here. Beautiful. If it can't do a 2 meter radius, that's why all of a sudden it changes to this funny number. It's going, I can't do 2 meters. I can do 718 though. And the reason for that is that it's probably hitting this point. In fact, if I go with that, you'll see it'll curve right up to there. Okay? I would still change it to a normal number. So if you ever have to write radius 718 millimeters, let's go 650. 650 is a nice number. Beautiful. Okay? And I could eventually turn those lines off, put them onto like a construction drawing layer or something. They're always handy to have those lines because I have to recreate this. I've got them. Same thing with that spline. I should have really had it on another layer and just switched that layer off. So I can turn on my construction splines, and I've got all these nice curves that I used to create it in the first place. So if the client comes back and says, I love that path, but I don't like that corner up there, can you smooth it out a bit? I could go back to that original spline, adjust it so it's a much nicer curve, create my nice, beautiful curving paths that follow it and recreate the 1500mm offset. Cool? Now, that is probably one of the more complicated things to deal with. But you've got to remember, okay, the simple thing here is that we can offset a line. Okay? If you have a problem, you can refer back to this video, but just remember that what's happening is those radiuses are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and eventually they're going to hit 0. Once they hit 0, you can't, if you go into minus, the whole curve's going to flip around on itself and it's going the opposite direction. So you've got to understand the logic that's happening in here when you're offsetting an edge is that you're making that radius smaller and smaller and smaller. Eventually, the radius is gone. So, and if you can't go any further, okay, that's cool. Just go as small as you can, clean up that corner so that it's now just a straight edge, and then you can keep going, because then it's just offsetting the edges. Because that's all it's doing. In fact, you watch, if I go and make a crazy shape, you can make some real, this is just using straight lines, right? So if I go and I'll do multiple offsets on this. Cool, magic wand this line. Eventually, see how the line changed completely? So what happened here, it just keeps moving that line over and over and over and over and over. Okay? However, this shape is a completely different shape to this one. Or at least it appears to be. But all it's done is it's taking that line and just offsetting it all the time. So eventually, the shape's going to be totally different because that's all. It's just offsetting everything. So when I got to this point, what I would probably do is stop, delete that, and then keep going because I don't need this edge anymore. This edge just doesn't make any sense anymore. Okay, I can, and quite easy, I suppose. I can just go and trim those off. Maybe I want to keep those bits. I can just it's just holding down the command key and just trim off what I don't need. I would probably do this at a little bit at an earlier stage, so I'd stop doing my offset, trim up my new line, get rid of the bits I don't like anymore, and then keep going with the offset. Okay, because I keep going on this one, it's just going to keep morphing. Get rid of that. I don't have to use the trim tool, but you'll find the trim tool is just so convenient and easier to use. There we go. So I wanted to keep going. I go back to my polyline here, back to my multiple offsets. Cool. Any questions? Okay. I think that's pretty much everything under that menu. And I think that brings us to an end. Okay, on Wednesday's tutorial? Wednesday morning, we're going to be working on the assignment a little bit closer. Okay, so just remember this. This session's always just about ArchiCAD and learning new things. And what we're going to do in there is we're going to bring in our site plan, that A4 one that I gave you. We're going to bring it in here, we're going to drop it down, we're going to scale that image, and then we're going to start drawing contours onto it, and then we're going to create a mesh out of those contours using the magic wand. Okay, and I'm going to look a little bit closer at the magic wand as well, because the magic wand has got lots of amazing settings in it that you can turn circles into hexagons, and you can govern the accuracy that it follows a curve and this sort of thing. So we'll see how powerful the magic wand really is. Yep.
Can you code after you finish doing it? So continue drawing it?
Not really, but what you can do is grab the last point that you drew, move it all the way over to where you want it to be. Like over here. Let's say that's where you want it to finish. And then you can go back and just add points to it, yeah. And so then you can go, right, I want that point to be back over here, and I want this point to be here, etc., etc.
Is there any way to repeat the last command?
Yeah, it should do that. I don't know why.
Is there a keyboard shortcut to repeat the last command?
I think it's W.
Is it like flipping dry line for the wall. Like, so you have to go on like walls and then.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're
that
saying.
kinda, like, repeat the last command.
I'm not 100% sure there is. I know that if you go, I think it's W, goes back to the last tool that you were using. So that flicks you back to the spline. Yeah. Okay, I'll just go stop the recording.